AlbionVC's Women in Leadership series. I'm Jess, an investor with AlbionVC, and I'm joined by Jane, our talent director.
Hi, Jess.
And we're so pleased to have Dr. Sarah Howell, the CEO of Arecor, with us today.
Hello, nice to be here.
Thank you, Sarah. So in celebration of International Women's Day, we're hosting a little series of conversations with all the female founders and CEOs in the AlbionVC family. And today we'd like to pick your brain a bit on being a CEO and then move into a sort of quick fire round of would you rather questions about you and your leadership style. So it'll be fun.
Okay.
To start, just to intro the audience to you and your company, you became the CEO of Arecor in 2015. Arecor is a biopharma company that has developed Arestat, a technology platform that helps reformulate drugs for better product stability and then in general, maybe greater efficacy. Arecor is developing its own drugs, such as ultra-fast-acting insulin for diabetes, and working in partnership with pharma and biotechs. Albion invested in the company in 2018. And prior to becoming CEO, Sarah was the company's COO, and you've had 20 years of experience in pharma, holding positions with GSK, UCB, and BTG, all across the industry. And to top it off, you have a PhD in organic chemistry, which I recall from school was the scariest of the chemistry.
Oh,
so thoroughly impressed. So now that I've given a bit of an intro to the company, could you tell us in your own words, how you came into the CEO role?
Yeah, exactly. As you said, I started with Arecor as the COO, so I moved across from BTG there to Arecor, and I really saw the opportunity that the company had a great technology platform and some real opportunities for growth there. So when the opportunity came up to take over as the CEO, I really grabbed that opportunity because I saw it as an opportunity to really build a world-class biotech company on the back of a great technology platform where we could really change the lives of patients for the better there. And having worked at some great companies that you've just described, GSK, UCB Celtech, BTG, at BTG we very much grew very quickly, acquisition strategy through M&A, but also taking those products to market. It was an exciting time to be at the helm of the company and really drive it forward and use the experience that I'd gained from those other companies and getting to know Arecor as COO as well. It was just a great opportunity that I grabbed.
Yeah, absolutely. Reflecting a little bit on your journey, what would you say was maybe the first or the most unexpected thing about your sort of first year as the CEO?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And actually, it's really clear for me what was the most unexpected thing, and it was the most surprising as well, is that actually when you become CEO, even after being COO within the company, it's actually quite a lonely position to be in. You go from working within a team of peers to everybody looking at you to ultimately make that decision and drive that forward. So actually, the book certainly stops with you. And that was probably something that caught me by surprise and helped me to realize how I actually work and how I like to bounce ideas off people and talk with people and really, make robust decisions in that way. And, so I think that was a surprise, but I think also what it taught me is you need to make sure you have the right team around you that you can still have those robust debates with and move forward and make the right decision. But ultimately, you are going to make a number of decisions on your own.
Yeah, that's something we hear a lot about, the sort of the loneliness of the role, and there's such a unique experience versus other positions in the company. What would you say has been sort of the biggest change you've seen in yourself between now and your first days as CEO?
I think now, certainly, probably the biggest change is that I would say that I'm much more comfortable and routinely now make faster decisions based on my sort of intuition and experience, and I'm comfortable doing that. And I think it's a combination of factors. You obviously gain more experience and expertise, but also more confidence in actually taking a step back and saying, okay, I don't know exactly, I've not been in exactly this situation before, but I feel confident based on X, Y, and Z of moving forward. So less likely to delve into, a big analytical piece of let's get all the data and all the facts. And because it's important to maintain momentum and move fast. You need to know when to move fast and when you have to make a decision quickly, and also when to pause. When do you need to create time to debate more broadly a decision for the business? So I'd say I'm much more comfortable at making those judgment calls now based on experience than I would have been, a number of years ago.
I like that sense of sort of learning to trust your intuition.
Yeah.
Learning to trust your own pattern recognition.
Exactly.
So what would your team say is your greatest superpower as the CEO?
My greatest superpower, it probably would be about, driving things forward and getting things done, which doesn't necessarily mean doing everything myself. But, that kind of energy and enthusiasm, I think, for moving forward and getting things done, which you absolutely need then to gather that team behind you and pushing with you in the same direction. I hope that's what they'd say anyway. Don't ask them.
We'll ask them after this. They're going to know when it gets on. Yeah.
Well, I love that idea of, a keen focus on getting things done and moving forward, keeping momentum. In that spirit, how do you think about saying yes versus saying no to competing priorities?
Yeah, and I think whatever role you're in, whatever position you're in, this is absolutely key, and it's always really challenging. But for me personally, if something needs to be done, the first question I would ask myself is this really critical for the business? Does this move the business forward? Does it need to be done? Question number one. And then secondly, do I need to do it? Does this need me? Can I leave the team to do this? Do they need me? Or, in some situations, should it be me and I should take this and just get it done? But, that makes it sound simple and straightforward. I think it's always difficult to separate from what you like doing to what you really should be doing and what needs to be done.
Yeah, that's a theme we've heard a lot, that asking yourself, do I really need to be doing
this? Yeah.
Be delegated. So when you think about your team, what strengths do you like to find in the people that make you more effective?
Yeah, I think for me, I thrive off people with positive energy. There's no doubt about that. So I like to surround myself with people that, share, my view on let's get this done and keep momentum going. I think every decision is not going to be right all of the time, but moving forward and, making robust decisions and acting on those is important, and accepting that along the way, some of those, you'll need to pivot and change and things. So, I really appreciate that from the team around me, and then their honesty and openness of flagging where they think, something should be different or we should change something. So you can, sit together and make those robust decisions and challenge each other effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea of, positivity, enabling nimbleness.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, fantastic.
The tensions in leadership combined with a kind of growing organization or an early stage business, which yours was when you joined, or is still even now, is so fascinating in your space, because the getting it wrong actually has some kind of fairly pivotal consequences that I'm really looking forward to asking you in this, funny game of would you rather, because you're going to want to do both, and we get that. I just would love to, hear your insights. I've been in the front line of, genuinely having to understand the consequences of making those tough decisions.
Yeah.
And so, let's begin with that. I'd love to ask your view. Would you rather hire for EQ or for IQ?
I mean, obviously, I'm greedy. I'm CEO. But, if you can't have both in one person, I think it's really, you need both of those, actually. And so I think it's really important to make sure you've got a balance across the team of those traits. So if you can't have those in one person, then I think you need to look across your team and say, are we balanced here? Do we have a good mix of IQ and EQ? And how do we work together as a team and as a matrix organization?
That is so brilliant. Yeah, really insightful answer that you can actually see on aggregate and deliberately go out to cultivate that or hire for that if it's deficient one way or the other. Yeah, beautifully said. So this next one, you talked, it's really clear your action bias and then your ability to be able to make decisions in the face of uncertainty in a fairly relentless way. I'm sure that, you would, as I asked the question, would you rather get things done or do things right? You're going to say get things done. Now, how do you mitigate for that when actually you need to do things right as well?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the optimum, of course, is both. You've got great momentum, you're getting everything right. But we all know at points there'll be things when you're maintaining momentum that won't be quite right and you need to pivot. And I think it's really, maintaining momentum is absolutely key, keeping moving. And I think if you do those, you create enough opportunities to get things right. And I think where things don't go quite to plan, or you go through and realize that something in the assumptions is not quite right, it's important to recognize that and say, okay, what do we need to change? We need to change something now. We made these assumptions, they're all made in good faith at the time, so something's not quite right. Let's make a change. So I think you've got to be brave enough as well to not just blindly carry on a path because it was decided 6 months ago, if you know something's not quite right. But I'm a really strong believer on it. You create enough opportunities as well and have the right team working on them that you'll get enough right to be a successful business. But you won't get everything right, and you've got to accept that.
And how do you have to know what you think the answer is before you'll say that you think it's wrong, or will you just say, oh, I think we're not, something's not right here, I'm not quite sure what it is? Like, where do you sit on that?
Yeah, and I think that probably leads into your earlier question. I think for me, that's certainly evolved over time, that you can more go on your intuition then and gut feel of actually, what are we doing here? Is this the right thing? And I think it's also important for companies and, as advice I would give, to keep an external view as well, because, if you're just racing against yourself, you're setting your own pace, and actually that might be the wrong pace for your external environment. So you need to keep an eye on what your competitors are doing and be open-minded to that somebody else may come in the left field with something you completely weren't expecting, and you've got to react and change to that. And you couldn't have anticipated it, but you need to be nimble enough to change.
Yeah, also brilliant advice. So would you rather have trust or performance in your team?
I think you need to trust your team. You've got to trust them to, otherwise, the question you asked earlier, how do you prioritize? If you don't trust your team, you're not going to prioritize. You're going to try and do everything yourself, and, you're not going to move forward. I think if you've got trust in the team, you've got the right team, the numbers will follow ultimately.
And how, again, I've been thinking about this for years and years. How do you know? What is the definition of trust? What is your definition of trust? And how do you know that you trust the people in your team?
I think it comes down to yours and their behaviours, actually. I think it's how you interact together, how, what you'll leave them to do without getting involved, that they know that they, can come and talk to you if they're worried about something or they want to flag something. So it's about culture, really. I think you can tell by a culture of an organization if people feel comfortable and confident, raising a red flag as well and saying, look, this isn't quite right. You've made this assumption, or saying, Sarah, you're actually wrong here. This is what we should be doing. If there's not that trust there and they don't feel comfortable, then you just won't have that in an organization. I think you can almost immediately tell walking into a new organization what the culture is and whether there's trust there.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, and it's a breaker, right, isn't it? If it's not.
Exactly.
No matter how many, goals you hit.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I know that you have to have both, but would you rather be infectiously persuasive or analytically decisive? And has that changed as you've gone from COO to CEO?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say, again, it's with that kind of confidence. I've probably gone, and I'm a scientist at the end of the day. So I've gone from needing more data, more information to think about things, to make decisions. Certainly, I think my early career, I would sort of dive into the detail and, had certain managers at points would be like, Sarah, just take a step back, that's brilliant, but do you need all of that? And now I would say, definitely the other end of the scale. I think some of them would probably be quite surprised now to saying, actually, I don't need all of that data and information. So I'd say whether I would rather be as not, whether it's right or wrong, I'm definitely on the infectiously persuasive. And, as a CEO, you are essentially selling the whole time. You're selling internally, the dreams of the employees, the vision, where are we going? You're at points asking people to work really hard because there's a timeline, a deadline. And so you're selling that to them and why it's benefits to all. And then you're always selling externally, whether it be investors or partners so I think you have to have that skill, to be honest, to motivate and bring everyone along with you.
It's one of our must-have investable characteristics in the leaders. Yeah, it's just an essential part of the role on every role description, no question. So would you rather spend time now on the big picture, or, as in the long-term big picture, or would you rather spend time, given your perfect day, spend time focused on the near-sighted problems that you need to solve for today? And how do you balance that if you're that's a tension for you?
Yeah, I think it's the role of the CEO to see the big picture and to be developing that, and for the team and my team, they're helping solve the problems. And really, we agree on our short-term plan, if you like, which will be the next couple of years. And you've got to have the right team in place that can operationally deliver that, and you trust them to do it, because you've got to deliver today. There's no doubt about that. But you've got to build tomorrow while you're doing it. And I think it's the only person in the company that's going to make sure that happens. The building tomorrow is the CEO. So you have to be quite disciplined in avoiding that tendency to jump into there's an issue now, I'll help solve it, and I feel good about that because something's solved now and I've achieved something, to saying, actually no, leave it alone. You could probably help, but you shouldn't. It's that question of priority: should I be doing it? No. So, and taking the time for the longer term, bigger picture, and that's absolutely critical for growth.
What's your top tip then for those that struggle with that? What's your top tip on, as you say, that question, which I imagine is a really good one to have on sticky notes around your desk, if that's an Achilles heel for some action-oriented founders. What else have you learned along the way? Little tips that have held you out to stay in the vision.
Yeah, and I think part of that as well is to ask your team to help you with that. For them to be confident in saying, actually, we don't need you. It's fine. We can handle this. Essentially, just go away and leave us alone. And for them to be confident in doing that, I think that's important. And I think you've just got to be so self-disciplined yourself, because actually, I'm an action-orientated person. Quite enjoy solving problems. You've got to as well be honest with yourself. Is this the right thing for the business? or am I doing this for me? Do I enjoy this? So, and you've got to, separate those two out. And I think that's where, as a CEO as well, your board can really help you, and your chairman particularly. We've got Andy Richards as our chairman, and, he's great for being able to bounce ideas off and for them to be asking you, okay, operationally, that's fine, and making sure you're not looking backwards all the time. You want them to be pushing you as well, say, okay, that's fine the next 2 years. What about years 3 to 5? What's the plan? What are we doing? What's the next big thing? And that forces you, of course, as well, to make sure you're disciplined in thinking about that. So I think using your board effectively is absolutely key as well.
Well said. And it sounds like you've got an amazing team that respect, where that respect is both ways, right? You can do that for each other. So, brilliant insights. So your team's going to love this, I think, because I'd love to move now to the quick fire round, where we just get under the lid, if you like, of you as a person. Quick fire round then. Would you rather learn a spoken language or a new computer language?
Oh, definitely a spoken language.
Tell me why. Which one? Yeah, exactly.
IT just needs to work for me. Someone else to fix it.
I love that. Exactly. Turn it on. Does it work? Brilliant. We're away. So would you rather be poor and work at something you love, or be rich and have to work at something that you hate?
Again, complete no-brainer for me. Definitely work at something I love.
Yeah, and be poor. Unfortunately, it's beans on toast then. And would you rather have a pause button on your life, or would you rather have a do-over, a rewind?
Definitely not a rewind. I don't regret anything that I've done in my life, or, decisions that I've made. Sometimes I'd like a pause button where I could pause everybody else and I then just get stuff done and catch up. That would be quite nice. So a pause, if anything, but definitely a rewind.
Would you rather be funnier than you are or smarter than you are?
Well, I think probably smarter. Scientists always want, ultimately to know more and learn more.
Amazing. Yeah. And from our point of view, we're thinking, goodness me, smart enough, I think. So you put it all to shame. Would you rather never age or never need sleep?
Probably never age, actually, there. Not never age, no, wrong one. Never need sleep. But I love sleep. So, I like to sleep. So, but the opportunity to then choose to sleep because you wanted to rather than you needed to. So you could create more time.
Create more time to get things done.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. What about, you talked about having no regrets. So I'm guessing the answer to this, but, would you rather die in 20 years with no regrets, or live to 100 and have a few?
Oh yeah, definitely die in 20 years with no regrets. Yeah, no doubt.
And what about be in the history books? Would you rather be in the history books for something really terrible, or be completely forgotten after you die?
Definitely completely forgotten. I mean, I'm not sure I hope not many people would want to be in the history books for something terrible.
Well, they say, don't they? All publicity is good publicity. To the history junkies amongst us, there's definitely a few villains in there. But you're right. It's usually we're finding anyway quite a binary answer to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's super insightful and really interesting.
Just to conclude on a sort of note on lessons learned, what advice would you give to your younger self, given what you know now?
Yeah, I think, and it's probably a bit of an obvious answer, but I'll elaborate on it a little bit more. I would certainly say, be confident in yourself and it's brave in your abilities. I would say, in my early career, I was often, the youngest person in the room, often the only female in the room. And you can, find yourself feeling like a bit of an imposter. Should I really be here? Do I have enough experience? Do I have enough expertise and things? And, what I would say to my younger self and, certainly we're talking about sort of aspiring women leaders, is actually, you're in the room because you should be in the room, and, you should own your segment of the room as to why you're there, and be confident in yourself and what you've got to say. And it doesn't matter if you're 10, 15 years younger than everybody else, or you're the only female in the room. I think it's, you should wear that with pride, actually, and recognize that you're there because you should be, and be confident in that. Of course, that's a very easy thing to say, and I think it partly comes with time and experience, and I think a lot of that comes to who is your mentor, who's your direct manager, and how supportive they are in helping you build that confidence, and helping you to reach that potential. But I think there's always room in early career to be more confident and kind of more proud of your presence than doubting yourself and wondering whether you really should be there, or whether you should say anything because you might not say quite the right thing.
Was there anything? Oh, sorry.
Yes, I was just going to say, that resonates with me, that the voice, right? It's I sort of thought I knew the answer, and it just really struggled to get my voice out there. How did you develop that? Like, how did you actually just do it anyway? Like, feel the fear and do it anyway? I
mean, I remember sort of early in my career, I mean, I don't have a problem with it now. I probably talk too much and ask too many questions, but literally sitting in a meeting thinking, I've got this question, I really want to know the answer, and it's a good question. And, very early on, you could get to the end of the meeting, you didn't ask, and you'd be really disappointed with yourself. So, a small thing that I did is that I would force myself, if I had a question, just be like, you're absolutely going to ask this question in this meeting. Now, I wouldn't go into a meeting with a contrived question that I'd thought up beforehand, and I was going to ask it whether it was relevant or not. But quite often, and it's kind of the way I think a lot. I think a lot on my feet, and, in my head, I'm going through different scenarios. So, and it was really just, I would make myself ask the question. And each time you do that, it gets so much easier, because you realize actually that it's not a stupid question, and other people are interested in the answer. And actually it just becomes easier and easier and easier to find your voice. I think you've got to force yourself to do it. It's like presenting. Nobody loves presenting when they first do it, but you've got to get yourself in a situation where you need to present. And then, do whatever you need to do to be comfortable. If you need to practice, whatever it is, and get comfortable, but you've got to force yourself to do it. And, and each time you do it, it becomes easier, and then it becomes natural, and you wonder why you were ever nervous about it in the first place.
Yeah. But you've just given a brilliant insight there, because the question, rather than going to a statement, which is, I think this, you actually, you're showing in smarts, if you like, and intelligence and expertise in asking a question, which is much, much less threatening, perhaps, but equally can enable your voice to be heard. Yeah. So, really, I think that's the key. Brilliant.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been really, really fun and really informative, I think, for all of us, learning to take baby steps to force ourselves out there.
Exactly. It was great to speak to you both today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.